Colorado is turning 150 years old, and next year, America will turn 250 years old. Those milestones offer a chance to look back at the people, places, and moments that helped shape our state and our country. From soldiers who trained in Colorado's mountains before helping change the course of World War II, to craftsmen preserving a piece of Colorado history in an unlikely place. Today, we're exploring some of those stories that helped define the Centennial State. Welcome to Real Talk with Micah Smith. I'm your host, Micah, and I'm so glad to have you with us. This year, Colorado celebrates 150 years of statehood. On August 1st, 1876, Colorado officially joined the Union exactly 100 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That is why it's called the Centennial State. I want to take this anniversary as an opportunity to reflect on the stories that helped shape the state we know today. When you think of Colorado's history, you may think of the gold rush, railroads, or even our iconic Rocky Mountains. But I've discovered some of the most interesting stories are the ones that connect Colorado to the larger American story. I want to start by taking you to Leadville and Camp Hale, the home of the 10th Mountain Division, which played an integral role in World War II and had a hand in the creation of the Colorado we've all come to think of now. A round black felt hat with an orange double-strand cord and gold eagle ordaining the front.
You might be wondering, this is just a fez.
But this fez housed at History Colorado has strong ties to World War II and a small division that helped turn the tide of the war.
This belonged to Benito Mussolini. His actual fez was found in a closet and then brought home by a 10th Mountain soldier.
All of the items Anschutz's military collections specialist at History Colorado Center, Sydney Mock, placed on this table are from the 10th Mountain Division, which trained in Colorado during World War II.
What made this division unique? So this is the first time that mountain warfare is introduced into the U.S. Army. They are specialty trained in both skiing and mountain climbing in order to prepare them for any kind of mountain warfare scenario. They recruited men who had all kinds of outdoor skills.
Back then, there weren't many skiers.
So the U.S. Army was actually producing literature like this, which we used after the fact to train, teach people how to ski, in the 50s and 60s. They trained right here in Colorado up at Camp Hale, which is right outside of Leadville. So training up at 10,000 feet really helped them get prepared to fight in the Italian mountains.
Camp Hale was constructed not very far from here to the north of us.
Hannah Carey is the director of the Healy House Museum and Dexter Cabin, a space that tells the story of Leadville and its place in Colorado history.
We had Red Cross meetings here on the property. We also had the sewing circles who would, once those soldiers moved into Camp Hale, were repairing clothing for soldiers.
What do you think about that connection and just that history of the 10th Mountain Division?
It's such a unique chapter in Lake County's history and in Colorado's history because it had never been attempted before.
We made our way out here to Camp Hale. It is snowing, it's windy, it's extremely cold, but these were the perfect conditions for these soldiers to train for this one-of-a-kind mission.
Here are aspects of the climbing training at Camp Hale, which becomes really important for the battle at Riva Ridge in Italy. The 86th are sent out to climb a 2,000-foot cliff face in the middle of the night to surprise the Germans. They're able to do that, and because of their heroic efforts, the rest of the division's able to break through the Gothic line.
Come on, you bunch of ridge runners! Get the lead out!
It turns the tide of the war in northern Italy, 1945.
The division goes on to seize Mussolini's lakeside villa.
And it's there that they take all kinds of what we call war souvenirs.
After 2 years of training, but just 5 months of warfare, the Army deactivated the 10th Mountain Division.
They came back and really poured that love into Colorado with really the establishment of the ski industry and recreational rock climbing.
And Mock says with that, these brave soldiers transformed their humble training ground into an outdoor enthusiast's dream. History isn't just found on battlefields or in textbooks. Sometimes it's preserved through the work of skilled craftsmen. Our next story takes us inside Fremont Correctional Facility, where a group of inmate artisans are helping create a unique piece of Colorado history. Against the backdrop of one of Colorado's vast mountain ranges sits a lively leather shop where work feels like freedom.
We're out here 40 hours a week, you know what I mean? So while we're out here, we like to say we're not in prison because we're out here working in as close to a real world job as you're going to get.
Ryan Kruger is the lead saddle builder and team trainer for this leather shop inside Fremont Correctional Facility.
We primarily build saddles for different manufacturers.
From saddles to leather bags, you name it, they build it. And Colorado Correctional Industries sells those items to the general public. The profits are reinvested to pay inmates, and in this leather shop, that means minimum wage.
As a person, as a man, it makes me feel a lot better about myself that I'm not relying on my family to support me, that I'm able to still support my kids, right?
Kruger and the other workers have plenty of time to perfect their way of making a living.
How long have you been incarcerated, Jeremy?
Right at 19 years.
I have life without parole. I've been incarcerated for 20 years. There's only 20 of us in the entire Department of Corrections that work in this shop. So I've actually trained pretty much every saddle builder that's in the shop right now.
I was a carpenter my whole life. I am a tooler and special projects manager of the tooling section. So a lot of the leather goods that we do here start from scratch with an inception and an idea. We have had saddles that have gone all the way to France. I have a saddle in the museum there to represent D-Day.
And soon, this saddle is heading to History, Colorado. Museum curators are traveling across the state, including to Fremont, to collect oral histories and items that tell Colorado's story.
They told us it was for the history of textiles through Colorado history. We went back and did some research, and this is actually a saddle that's meant to mimic an 1800s Colorado miner saddle, all hand built and hand tooled.
Would you be able to demonstrate for us like a hammer strike that could create this design?
I couldn't, but one of our toolers could.
Ricardo Chelsea Sevilla patiently shows me how he creates these intricate designs.
The more exciting thing in the shop, give it to the personality.
Were you artistic before you started doing this?
Not really.
No?
Not really. No, even close. I've been doing this for 10 years, almost 10 years. Really is a good experience for me, the best experience in life.
We're making a product that people on the outside are going to use every day, you know what I mean, and that they cherish.
This job has not only saved my life, but it saved my life within prison. It has provided me the time and the space to actually look inward and evaluate how I want to live the rest of my life.
I followed up on this story and was there when the Colorado Department of Corrections handed off the saddle to History Colorado. I talked to Tara Kaufman, Associate Curator of Clothing and Textile Arts, about the significance of this item and this moment. So finally, the saddle is here at History Colorado. What does that represent for you in terms of this journey?
It's been an amazing project to work on. Here at History Colorado, our curatorial team is actively working to diversify our collection and better represent our communities on a statewide level. So this whole project has been in the works for maybe a year and a half now. And it's finally the culmination. They made this custom saddle for us, and it's going on display, and it'll be here for a year and then in the collection permanently.
I never know where a story is going to take me. That was certainly true for this one, but I am so grateful to everyone involved in it. Well, coming up, we're turning the tables. For once, I'll be the one answering the questions as we talk about the stories that have shaped my view of Colorado and why I've fallen in love with this state. This is Real Talk with Micah Smith. Welcome back to Real Talk with Micah Smith. This episode, we're exploring Colorado's history and the stories that have helped shape our state. Over the years, I've had the chance to report on a lot of these stories for Denver 7, and most of the time, I'm the one guiding the conversation and sharing other people's experiences. So for this episode, I wanted to take a different approach and take a moment to talk about the stories themselves and what they've meant to me as a reporter. So to help me do that, joining me now is our Real Talk producer, Haley Brand, who helps shape the conversations you see here on Real Talk from behind the camera. But today, she's the one asking me the questions. So Haley, thank you so much for taking the driver's seat and driving this conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I've watched your stories from the other side of the camera, and now we get to talk about it from this side. So you've spent years reporting on stories that have shaped the state we call home, and those stories have shaped your view of the state. So when you look back on the stories that you've covered from your time here, what stands out to you most from those stories about Colorado?
I just think Colorado is such a unique place, and I think through every story I do, that thought becomes bigger and bigger. It is truly like the Wild West. It's adventurous. You can literally try and do so many different things. It's a place for all people. I've met so many people from so many different walks of life who are able to live the life that they want here in our state. And I think that is what makes Colorado so special. And I will say, you know, when I first got here, I had an idea of what Colorado was. I've been here for about 7.5 years now. And I just thought, okay, mountains, skiing, ski people, that's it. You know, I didn't think there was a whole lot in between. And boy, was I wrong. And I feel so blessed and grateful that I've had the opportunity to go all over this state and find these stories and listen to people and share my microphone to amplify those voices. It's been beautiful, and Colorado is truly in my heart.
Well, I love that. Watching your stories, I'm from here, I'm a native, I grew up here, but watching your stories, I still learn so much about this state that I've called home for so long. Is there a story that you've covered that has changed how you see Colorado overall?
You know, every story I do on outdoors, anything happening in the outdoors here in Colorado has really helped broaden my perspective. There's a story I did back in, I believe, 2021. It was on the National Brotherhood of Skiers, which is a national Black ski group, and they were holding their ski summit here in Colorado. It was in Aspen. And I convinced our news director at the time to go and tell their story. And so I'm telling this story about how this group of Black skiers and snowboarders are just completely taking over Aspen Mountain for a weekend. And it helped change my perspective because I had never really experienced seeing Black people skiing on a mountain. And I'm not saying that I didn't think that it happened. I was sure that it happened, but it was just so cool to experience it up close in person. And it helped broaden my mindset. So while I was doing this story, after we wrapped up for the day, there was an instructor there that said, well, you can't do this story and not try skiing yourself. And I was like, what? No, I'm not a skier. And he was like, but you can be a skier. And so we did like a quick lesson, and now I can tell you, I am a skier. You know, I love me a good green. I can get through the blues. I'm not ready for blacks. I don't know if I ever will be, but I enjoy it. And so it made me feel a part of something, a part of a sport, but also a part of Colorado. And it taught me, don't place limitations on yourself. And this is a state where you can test the limits you put on yourself and really do something fun and broaden your horizons. So that is one of my favorite stories because it literally, quite frankly, broadened my horizons of what's possible in this state.
That's such an incredible story. I got goosebumps. I know you've also spent time reporting in other cities. We both spent time in Charlotte, different times, but overlapped a little bit there. When you look back at your career overall, what makes Colorado specifically stand out to you from other cities, other markets that you've been in?
Colorado stands out because Colorado is still today what it set out to be 150 years ago. Colorado set out to be, you know, a Western territory where there was space, and you still have a little bit of that Wild West. You still have that, you know, flavor of ranching and farming, which is just really the root of what our state is about. You have the beautiful, vast mountains that you can explore, but that have also been commodified to an extent and are an industry that provides great revenue for our state. And so I think Colorado stands out because today it's exactly what it set out to be 150 years ago. And it's improved. And it's a place that creates space for everyone, no matter what you're looking for. If you want to be a city slicker, Denver is right there for the taking. You can be as cosmopolitan as you want to be, and also wear your Birkenstocks and your pullovers, and you don't have to get too fancy at the same time. If you want to snow and ski and snowboard, you can do that in the high country. You can, you know, go to an unpretentious mountain like Loveland, or you can go to Aspen and have all the bells and whistles. So it's a place that you really can carve out a space for yourself. And that is exactly what the founders of our state wanted 150 years ago, to really still feel like you're free, but also have some of the things you need in an organized state and have an organized government. So.
I love that. Well, before I let you go, I of course have to ask, of all the stories that you've covered, is there one that's your favorite?
My favorite is a story that we featured here on Real Talk, and that is Charlotta Evans and Raymond Johnson. Please go back and watch it if you haven't, but quickly, a quick recap of it. Raymond Johnson, when he was just a teenager, was involved in a drive-by shooting that took the life of Charlotta Evans' 3-year-old son. And through a restorative justice program, Raymond was essentially sentenced to life in prison. They were able to have restorative conversations, and Charlotta forgave Raymond, and now they have a mother-son relationship, and she actually advocated for his release. So after over 25 plus years in prison, he was released and has a new chance at life, and now she helps him and he helps her, and they live a beautiful life together. But this is my favorite story because it shows the power of forgiveness. It highlights that we as humans are all flawed, but if we take a moment to just see the humanity in each other, we can always start over again. All of us have something to give to this world, to this earth, and to our beautiful state. It just takes us seeing that in one another and being willing to take a chance on one another.
Well, and meeting them, their story is so powerful. And if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it.
Please
Just
do.
getting the chance to speak with them is life-changing and makes you think about things.
It does.
Well, Micah, thank you so much. This was so fun getting to talk to you on this side.
Thank you.
And we're going to keep this going. So coming up after the break, Micah, I booked one of your favorite historians to come join us on Real Talk and share some untold, maybe some lesser known stories about Colorado's history. So stay with us. This is Real Talk with Micah Smith.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Micah Smith. As we look back on 150 years of Colorado statehood, we know this state has no shortage of well-known history, but as we've been talking about this episode, some of the most interesting stories aren't always the ones you hear first. They're the ones that don't make it into textbooks or even most conversations about our state's past. And that's why we wanted to bring in someone who has spent years studying all Colorado history. Joining me now is Engagement Manager for Black Communities at History Colorado and historian Terry Gentry. Terry, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
So the first thing I'd like to ask is, you've spent years studying Colorado history. What's a story that always surprises people when you tell it?
One of my favorite stories to share are the people from 1864. Colorado applied for statehood in 1864 and are always surprised that the activities that were happening in Colorado were happening at the same time as the Civil War. And we had these gentlemen here that signed a petition demanding the right to vote be added to our Colorado Constitution when Colorado applied for statehood. So we had folks like William Sanderlin, William Jefferson Hardin, I'm sorry, let me start over. Okay. We had Edward Sanderlin, William Jefferson Hardin, Barney Ford was one of the leaders in that, Henry O. Wagner, his brother-in-law, people are surprised to learn that they were related, and there were so many people working on making sure that we had the right to vote. So 137 men signed this petition in 1864, including William Norwood, who was Zion Baptist Church minister. And there were other members of Zion and Shorter AME Church that were signing this petition. Colorado initially became its own territory in 1861, and black men could vote when we became a territory, and then they changed the writing in 1864 when they applied for statehood. So unfortunately, President Lincoln was assassinated, so by the time the petition landed on the president's desk and Colorado statehood was vetoed, and then this petition was vetoed. But these men were able to work on getting the Territorial Suffrage Act in place, so Congress was able to push that through, Territorial Suffrage Act of 1867. So that's one of my favorite stories, to know that we were actively working on our freedom and equal rights as far back as the 1850s into the 1860s.
Wow, so this group of black men, they were able to secure that right to vote then?
Yes, through the Territorial Suffrage Act, they were able to continue voting. They had voted in Denver elections in 1859, 1861, and the things that were happening. So with the Territorial Suffrage Act, they were able to continue that and move that forward for black men across the western United States that were still part of territories and not yet states.
Which is so huge, because black men and women were still actively being enslaved at that time. So that's a huge step. And Barney Ford, I've definitely heard that name many times. He was a business owner, correct?
Yes, he was, and he's also in our state capitol. So his picture, along with Clara Brown, are in our state capitol for great memories.
Very interesting stories we can't share right now because that will take us completely off on a tangent, and I have many more questions for you. But who is someone from Colorado history that you think deserves more attention?
There's 100 people, but one person I was thinking about is Silas Soule. So 1864, as I mentioned, was quite a pivotal year in our history, and the Sand Creek Massacre happened out on the Eastern Plains. And Governor Evans authorized Colonel Shivington to go out on the Eastern Plains, and they killed, I've seen numbers as much as 250 Arapaho and Cheyenne. People that were living peacefully, had a white flag, they had the American flag, they were following all the rules that the military put in place. And so Silas Soule stood up to the military and told them he was not going to massacre these people, and he stood up for them. And then he was assassinated. And he was like 26 years old when that happened, and he was an abolitionist. He grew up with abolitionist parents, and they lived in Kansas, or they lived on the East Coast and then moved to Kansas, and then he was part of the military here in Denver, or in Colorado.
What's one part of Colorado's history people often get wrong or overlook?
Ooh, there's so many different things that people don't understand with Manifest Destiny, and how that triggered so many different things, like taking the land from Mexico, and Colorado was part of Mexico. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, where the United States bought all of that land after the Mexican-American War, it's part of the compromise. But you see the people that were here that lost their land when it transitioned from Mexico to the United States. And there were people enslaved. And there were people moving into the state with people enslaved. So there's so many stories that you can look at around the state about the loss of freedom as we became part of the United States. So part of it was the Louisiana Purchase and part of it was Mexico. So there's so many stories that we could identify, and fortunately we have a lot of museums around the state that are confronting those histories. So we want to make sure that maybe people can get out and visit some of those places and learn some of these stories.
Terry Gentry, historian, thank you so much for joining us for this Real Talk.
Thank you.
And that is this week's episode of Real Talk with Micah Smith. We are so thankful that every week you choose to tune in for this Real Talk on issues that impact Coloradans who are often overlooked. If there's a Real Talk you would like to have, please let me know. You can send me an email at micah.smith@denver7.com. In the meantime, you can find all of our shows on denver7.com/realtalk. Have a great day.